All right. Well, welcome to the very, very first episode. I figured out the name. I had somebody from Reddit actually help me, so shout out to them. The name will be the Tough Love Podcast because I think it's a very important thing that you need to do sometimes. You need to give yourself some tough love. And I actually have a guest somehow. I forgot when I put out the post. Do you remember?
I have no idea.
It was a quite a bit ago, but I remember I did get some traction off it, and it was great. And I actually have a host, and this is, I think, a great way to just kind of speak about different breakups because I mean the Reddit the subreddit has so many different perspectives. But I think a lot of the times you're just kind of scrolling and you just kind of see the post, you like it and you comment, but you don't really get much from it. I think you just kind of get a small condensed version. And I think this is a better way to just kind of get stories out there, get some help, get some healing if you need to, get some advice, some tips or whatever. And I'm just, yeah, just trying to get different perspectives because everybody's circumstances are different. So just kind of asking what people learned, what people are learning now. And yeah, because you never know. Somebody may be going through the same exact thing. So I think this will be a great healing thing. And plus people like listening more than they read, don't they? Or at least for me anyway. I won't I won't generalize. But yeah, would you like to, I mean, give your Reddit name? Would you like to introduce yourself and just kind of talk about what whatever you feel comfortable with talking about your story and just kind of putting it out there.
Yeah, so on Reddit, I'm Ashley or Ashley Lee. And in December, um my relationship of about 2 years ended. And it's especially tough because being a teenager and it being my first, not only my first relationship, but also my first
Right.
serious relationship. Because I feel like not many first relationships go on for 2 years or more. Like that's a decent
Right.
amount of time for teenagers. Especially being, I think I was 16 and he was 17. Um,
Right.
so yeah, in December, well, I said in November, we had an argument about something stupid, and that snowballed into him ignoring me for almost 3 days, like completely in the middle of the argument, shut off his phone or something, and
Right.
ignored me. Which, so I'm actually gonna jump right into some advice giving.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
If
ahead.
somebody doesn't answer the first three calls, they're not going to answer the 50th. And that's only going to irritate them more when they turn their phone back on
That is
and they
very
have
true.
a lot of messages. So that's something I know I regret, is when we would argue, he may say he needed some space. I mean, we
Right.
are both in the wrong, but it's like, don't keep spamming them with messages. Write your feelings down, spam a friend, because when they turn their phone back on or when they come back to the situation, only seeing those messages, half of them you probably regret, are
Right.
is going to make them angry or more irritated, and it's going to restart the angry feelings that you had.
And it
um
probably just comes from like it in your case, it probably just comes from you're trying to fix the situation right then and there. You're trying to make right and you're just trying to just be like, hey, just talk, just don't walk away. Let's just fix it
yeah,
right here, right now. Whereas some people, I guess, just need that bit of this. I guess I'm like that. I don't like being, because it does feel like you're being hounded, and I'm just trying to give a different perspective here because that's
right.
and because like that same situation happened with my ex. She used to constantly be like, no, we're gonna talk. So it would get to the point where I would just feel like I need to shut my phone off because it would just get too much, and sometimes you just need to walk away, and sometimes they need to, they don't want to say anything that they'll regret, and then it's
Mhm.
the same on the other side. So it I it's completely understandable from the other side of like you're panicking, you want to talk, you want to fix it.
Right.
But I think that's I think you gave perfect advice there. Yeah.
Yeah. It comes from a place of, in my case, extreme panic. Like, oh my gosh, this is it. This
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
the end. So it obviously it's like, oh, we were arguing over something silly, but it's like, oh, this is the end. This is the end. So
Exactly. Yeah.
when he finally called me after the few days, we also, he did it without warning. So that's not good. Like he just like walked away without warning. But
Right.
over the next few days, then when we talked, he said he wanted to take a break. And I was like, oh. And that was really
Hmm.
weird. So it was like, oh, for a month. And I was like, a month. But then it was like, oh, well, we can still talk every now and then. I was like, well, I don't understand what this means. Like we weren't broken up, but it was just like, oh, we're gonna take a break.
Right. Did you
I
have like that
yeah.
bad feeling like, oh yeah, maybe this
Oh
is
yeah.
over? Okay.
And I talked to him about it, and he promised me that it wasn't. He just needed some space. He wasn't going to break up with me. Now, here's where I add some more advice.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to set boundaries, even if they're really hard on you and you don't agree with it and you think it's going to be more harmful, it's best to just let them be, because you'll save yourself, some, because I just was like, no, let's talk this out. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. A whole month. And then
Yeah.
he kept extending it. And it was like, okay, till the end of the year, this isn't fair. We had things planned for Christmas. We had his birthday was coming up. And I was like,
Right.
why would you do this? Like, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
eventually, after, I guess not necessarily respecting his boundaries. So like texting him more than he wanted me to, getting upset when his replies were really like dry. And I was like, this changed. It was a switch. Almost
Right.
overnight, there was a switch that he just wasn't the person I remembered him. I'm not sure what happened. And then the night of December 2nd, we were arguing again. And
Right.
I said, we're still together though, right? And he said, I'm not sure anymore. And then I was like, well, you have to call me. So he called me and we talked, and he said, so his reason for breaking up was the whole classic, it's not you, it's me.
Right. Yeah.
So, right. And I feel like I can't really take his answer. Like it's the answer he gave me, but it's it was a very odd reason. He said, I don't think we're going to work out long term in the future, and our personalities just don't match. But it's kind of like, wouldn't you know that before 2 years? Wouldn't you know
Yeah.
that? And so after a lot of thinking, I think, now this is the answer he told me, but my personal thing is, I think that he was in the middle of a job change. He was just starting out college. Like it's difficult, and he felt like everything was out of control, and I was just an extra added whatever time commitment, maybe in stressor sometimes. And
Right.
he can't quit his job, he can't quit schools, but he can get me out of his life. So I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that's a lot of why he kept saying, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Because I thought it was my fault. I thought it was because of the argument. And he kept saying, it's not my fault. And he said, the thing that really gets me is, I don't want to do this. And I love you so much. But, and then he didn't, there was no discussion. There was no chance for me to say, hey, wait, let's think about this here before you just do this. Like he was like, we're breaking up and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
But I don't want to break up and I still love you. And he kept saying, even after we broke up, that he loved me. And it's difficult and confusing. It's good to know that the reason wasn't because he stopped loving me, but it's hard to know that both of us still loved each other. Neither of us wanted to do this, but yet it still happened. It's still happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's,
Of
yeah.
course. Yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, you can probably, I mean, you know, obviously you know him better than I do, but I think the moment when maybe like this is a general thing, but like I think the moment that they ask for a break, maybe that's like they've already checked out, like for them. That's the thing. That's the same thing that happened to me. Mine came out of nowhere. It started as an argument as well, and then it was just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Um, and then yeah, it just comes out of nowhere because I think for them the relationship already ended, but they are just having this inner struggle, or maybe they haven't realized that the relationship is over, but they're going into that internal struggle of like, should I do it, should I not, what should I do, and then they're so confused. And then he was maybe weighing his options, like, okay, what's going on here. um the problem with that is that it's a relationship, it's a two-way street. You have to kind of communicate that with somebody. And I think that's the problem with a lot of the dumpers, is that, and I'm not trying to say all dumpers are like this, but
Mhm.
I think that they just kind of check out of the relationship a while back, and they're contemplating on just kind of letting you down, because you, in your mind, right, you're thinking, okay, well, slight bump in the road, everything's going to be fine, we've gotten through a lot, we can get through this. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, they're already thinking, no, this is already over. I'm already made up my mind. And then I think something happens where, like in my case, a fight happens or an argument happens. And then that is like, okay, well, this is, I have to say it now, because this is like, they're kind of confirming to themselves, like, yes, I am making this choice because of this action that's happening right now, where they're just thinking, yeah, this isn't going to work. I guess in your case, would you say, because you guys are younger, because I'm older, so would, for you guys, do you think for him he's kind of like, he's just wanting more of that life experience, going to college is a huge deal, getting a job is a huge deal. I know you guys were together for a long time, but do you think for him he's just kind of going through this phase of like, is there more than just this, because a whole door is about to open for him, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would probably say maybe half and half. We're both 19. Both of our birthdays passed
Okay.
when we were broken up. So he turned 19 without me. I turned 19 without him. But
Right.
I wonder. I know he's always been really nervous about the future, especially with COVID and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it's just generally a feeling of overwhelming. I can't put all my work and effort into school, work, and her, and I won't be able to do all three of them well. I think was his
Okay.
biggest was. I mean, I don't know because that's not the reason he gave me, but from looking at it and also reading through the subreddit, a lot of people say that is a big reason for younger relationships, is like, I can't do all of this. Life is changing so fast. I feel like I'm out of control. The only thing I can
Yeah.
control is this relationship. Whereas I wanted to be there for him and be there with him, but he didn't. I guess I was more of a hindrance than a help in his
Yeah.
mind.
I get where you're coming from. Do you think for yourself, like, just as many opportunities that he has, you also have too, because you're young. Do you feel like um all these all these life-changing things that can happen to you, maybe you would have been in the same position if you guys would have stayed? Or do you think that you would have tried, like, let's say you were on his side, you just got
Mhm.
a job offer, you got all of these things, you have so many things going on for you, and you feel like, oh, this is really tough, juggling all these things are really tough. Would you say that you would try your hardest to make it work, or do you think it would work if you guys were both extremely busy, extremely, just doing your own thing? You have so many different opportunities. Do you what do you feel like would happen if the situation was reversed?
Well, actually, we actually kind of did go through this. I In our senior
Mm,
year of high school, I was doing high school. I was also taking college courses at the same time. I
Right.
also got a new job. And so it's like, well, and I leaned on him for the support and he was there for me.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, well, he just can't handle it as well as I could. And he's the kind of person where it's like he will work himself to the bone to do the absolute best in every area of his life. Whereas
Right.
I'm like, well, I do everything pretty good. Like, I do everything really well, but not
Right.
obviously not to the best of my capabilities, because to do it to the absolute best, I would have to pour so much time into it, like he's doing. So it's like a perfectionist overachiever is with him, and I'm good with settling for this is good enough. Like it's good. It's not like I'm slacking, but I mean, I could be a huge overachiever if I put all of my time and effort into it. So I'm more content with being pretty good, and he's strives to be the best he can possibly be, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but then that means he can't split himself very well between these three things: work, job, or work, school, and a relationship.
Yeah. I get what you mean. It is like I guess maybe it does come down to ultimately how you handle and manage like stress and all these things. And maybe he
Right.
just isn't the best at handling
Right.
stress, or I think it's obviously, I mean, you see this in the subreddit a lot, and a lot of people are like to call it like the coward's way out and all that stuff, and it because it is a lot easier to just kind of be like, oh, this is too tough, so therefore I'm out, um so maybe that's just like the thing for a lot of dumpers. Maybe this just like it's just too much. I can't deal with it. I don't want to try anymore because of different reasons. It doesn't mean that I don't love you anymore, but maybe it's just like, oh, it's just not going to work out. And it doesn't mean that maybe, like, this is like the thing that I always say, that you never really know what's happening in the future. Like, I think I may be going, a lot of people go through this too, that they worry either too much about the past or they worry too much about the future, and they don't really live in the present. And maybe that causes too much stress. Like maybe he's thinking too much into the future of like, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do there? What am I going to do? And I guess maybe he doesn't express it. He didn't express it well because you had no idea. And I guess that's just like the big issues. Like people get too preoccupied, people overthink too much about what's going to happen, that they start making up all these scenarios in their heads, and then they're thinking, well, I don't want that, so I need to not do that. And then, obviously, the dumpies are the ones who end up suffering for it.
Right. Yeah. I like I said, I don't that's not the reason he gave me, so I can't be 100% sure, but that's like the only thing I can think of, because I saw it was very common on the subreddit for dumpers to do that when they feel, especially, now I'm not generalizing, but especially men is what I saw, just to be like, I can't handle all of these things at once.
Right.
And to just, so that's why I was like, and then talking with his mother, because his mother and I were pretty close, she said that's what she kind of suspected too.
Right.
So
Yeah. So have you tried, like, are you doing no contact? Are you still in talking to him? Are you like, what's going on
yeah, so
with that?
here's the thing.
Right.
It was kind of something that we were like, okay, like we really wanted to do this maturely. We wanted to still be friends, but then it ended up being a pretty messy ending. So I think we just
Mm,
kind of didn't talk as much. Like he refused to, after we had hung up that call, he refused to discuss it, even though I felt like I still needed closure. I felt like I wanted to still talk about this. Um, he refused. So that caused some tension because it felt like there was unresolved issues. But I'd say probably 2 weeks after the breakup, um, we actually ended up talking on the phone for about 4 hours, just chatting, just talking
wow.
about, like, I know, just like talking. And we decided to Now, this is another word of advice. Don't do it to hook
Right.
up. Like, and so we hooked
Right.
up
Yeah.
about 2 times after. The second time we got into another argument because I forget what exactly happened, but he wanted me to tell me he wanted me to tell him what I was thinking, why I seemed upset. And I was like, but I can't because he is going to get mad. But he kept being like, tell me. And he said, talk to
Hmm.
me like an adult. And I said, you have no place to tell me to talk to you like an adult after everything that you've said and acted the past month. And then he
Right.
said, get your stuff and leave. So he kicked me out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And after that, he said he didn't really want to talk. We talked a little bit. And then over Christmas, we had a really bad argument. And then again, we kept arguing. And then one day in January, he was at work. I went to his house. Hear me
Hmm.
out. Hear me out. I went to his
Right.
house to give his sister, because I had a really close relationship with his family, to give his
Right.
sister a few things. And she was going to give me a bunch of books that she cleared off of her bookshelf. And we
Okay.
ended up chatting for a while. And then his grandmother came over and we ended up chatting. And then he came home from work and he was
Uh,
not happy. So the goal wasn't to show up to his house and be psycho, like pounding on his door and be like, I'm here. Like, I was
right.
going
Yeah.
for a purpose other than him, but he came home. I don't know if he ever knew that I wasn't just showing up at his house to surprise him. But we had a
Right.
very, very pleasant interaction. He said it was nice to see me. He gave me a hug. And on the way home, I got a message that he didn't want any contact for the foreseeable future and he blocked me on everything.
Right. Yeah.
Which totally blindsided me because the interaction we had was good and I thought, okay, this was good. And then yeah, it all fell apart. And so since January 24th, he still had me blocked and there's been no contact. So I don't know when it's going to end. And that's the toughest part. I don't know if I'm ever going
Right.
to talk to him again. But he said there was no hard feelings and no resentment and that still wants to be friends and doesn't want to lose me out of his life. But then he went and did that. Like he's never done any of this kind of stuff before. So it's like everything came out of nowhere and I feel like I just don't know him anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now, is just kind of like, am I ever going to talk to him again? It's been months.
Yeah.
So
I get what you mean. It's kind of crazy that your thing was on the 24th. My breakup was on the 26th of January. So
oh
funny that. Um, but I mean, it's obvious that he does care. If he's never done anything like this, it's obvious that the feelings are still there, the emotions are still there, but he's trying really hard to just get over you. And I think the fact that you went, I'm not saying that you did anything wrong, but the fact that you went over and he saw you there and he saw you with his family, it probably brought back a lot of the memories of like, oh yeah, we were together for so long, she knew my family, all these things, but now that it's over, it can't be like that. So maybe he didn't think, oh, you're crazy, why are you at my house, you're my ex. Maybe he's not thinking like that, but maybe he's thinking when he saw that this can't be the norm because we're not together anymore, so
mm-hmm.
therefore he kind of did this shotgun approach of like, I just need to get rid of you so that way you don't show up anymore, I don't have to see you, I can just get over you and start healing. And I think maybe that's what he was trying to do, and I think that's what a lot of people that just kind of like it sounds like acting out out of emotions and just kind of just trying to stop or like just get over it as quickly as possible so that way he doesn't have any lingering feelings, or maybe like the hookup, maybe that's something that was like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. So he's probably trying to avoid any of those things that will just make you guys end up like hating each other, because that's not what you would want, right? You don't want to
Right.
end up just fighting, fighting, fighting when you guys should just be healing. And then you see what's gonna happen in the future, obviously. But I think maybe that's just what it is.
Yeah. He also said a lot of really mean things to me, like a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
we're not together anymore. I don't have any obligations. I'm like, you still need to treat me kindly, or like, there's nothing here. He said that one time when I was like, I don't want to lose this. And by this, I meant, and I even said it, I said, by this, I mean like our relation, our friendship, like our friendship, like each other. And he was like, there's
Right.
nothing here. And I was like, I literally just told you to stop saying that, because I know you don't have to keep repeating it over and over again, because then it gets me upset.
Yeah.
So he said a lot of really mean things. And I am like, well, is he just that way now? Is he just mean now? Or is he trying to push me away so I leave him alone and he can heal? Like, it's not necessarily a healthy defense mechanism or a coping mechanism, but I would understand if that's what he's trying to do. If I push her away, she'll leave me alone and I can finally start to heal.
Yeah. I think it is that. It's also like, the tension is high, emotions are high, and you may say something that you regret. It's the same situation for me, where it was, hey, I'm gonna break up with you, but it was no toxicity from it or anything. It was kind of like mutual, like, okay, I let's still love you, still care for you. um and then she was like, I would love to still be friends. To me, I understood that in, like, oh, okay, let's be friends like the next day, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I tried to text as if we were friends. I tried to do this, do that, and we were texting every day, um, like as if nothing. But then she was like, okay, well, we can't act like nothing has happened because things have changed. We were texting every day. We were still doing our nighttime routine stuff while we were broken up, and it just didn't make any sense, because then that's how one of us ends up getting hurt, because it feels like over being strong along. You know, I'm giving you this, I'm giving you that. So I made the mistake of, like, so she went from messaging me all the time to messaging me every few days. And then I made the mistake of saying, hey, why are you ignoring me? Well, not that, but why does it seem like you're avoiding me? Like, I can see
Right.
that you're reading my messages, like late, you're not messaging me as much. um and then she said, which I agree, I actually agreed with her, what she said, that, well, we can't message each other like we used to because it's not the same. Um and in my head, I got really hurt by that, thinking, well, wait, you're the one who said who you wanted to be friends. Why aren't we messaging at least as friends? But the reality is that I needed to tell myself that we're not friends right now. We became,
Right.
you know, from committed relationship to strangers. And that's how kind of it just has to go that way, because you just can't be friends because the feelings are still there. So I think they go really dry and they go really cold because they're trying to get a message across, and they're trying not to give you any sort of breadcrumbs where you're going to feel like, well, maybe they're talking to me in a way, and maybe I can say this, maybe I can say that, that to win them back. I think that's what they try to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's definitely something I should probably note, that I am an extremely emotional person and he is not. He is the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
So that was something. And so yeah, it's like we were messaging every day, not nearly as much as we used to, and we weren't calling each other at night, but there was still that a little bit of communication that we should have just went no contact for like a month or maybe 3 months right away, instead of And that would have probably prevented the messier, more toxic end where now I'm like regretting a lot. I mean, I still regret a lot, but and maybe he is too. And it's like, if we wouldn't have done that, if we would have just kind of done things the way you should have instead of just tried to keep being friends,
Mhm.
things probably would have gone better. And I don't know if I mentioned that it was his first relationship too. So
Right.
both of us had no idea what we were doing. So I'm trying to give myself a little bit of more grace. Like, okay, we were teenagers. I mean, technically we still are, but we were
Right.
younger. It was our first relationship. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things that I'm going to look back on. I look back on now, but I look back on in a few years and be like, that was ridiculous. That was so immature of me to do. And
Right. Right.
that's where I'm at right now, is a really hard time forgiving myself for the really, no, I wouldn't say it wasn't a toxic relationship, but both of us acted toxic at some
Right.
points. So I'm like, that was so toxic. I would never do that. Why did I do that? And
Yeah.
like somebody told me, was sometimes these kinds of relationships are intense, so it brings out the best and the worst in a person.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think, I mean, you can make an argument that it's like, oh, it's because you're 19, you guys are 19, so therefore like there's no experience, all these things. But honestly, 40, 50 year olds still make these mistakes. I think it's just it's a natural human thing.
Right.
Mistakes will always be made. Um, and I think that that's the thing. You're in this point now where you feel like, oh man, if I could just do this, if I could just fix that, maybe this, that. It's like maybe if you didn't say this, all these things, it's like yes, yes and no. The problem is that it is a yes and no thing. So it's you can't really dwell on all these things because it's like you have to get to a point where you just pick yourself back up and say, okay, well, what did I learn from this? What did I take away from this? So that way in the future, I don't repeat these things. And obviously, um, you know, a lot of the, the high school sweetheart relationships, I don't have much experience with the high school sweetheart relationships. Um, but I know a lot of them. I know a few people that have lasted like that. And I think maybe in your case, there just needs to be more experience from like not necessarily having a more boyfriends and him having more girlfriends, but maybe just more life experience needs to happen. um and more, some definitely a lot of reflection. You look back at the relationship and think, okay, well, this was 2 years of your life, first boyfriend. What did you take away from it? What are you going to learn from it? And then you just kind of go from there. Like it may not have been toxic for you guys, but obviously things get said. Like that's just a normal thing. I think it's just humans say a lot of things that they regret after. um, but then you just kind of learn to deal with your mistakes because mistakes will always happen. No matter if you're in the happiest relationship you've ever been, things will always go sour at some point. It's I think you're at a point now where you have to do a lot of self-reflection and think like, okay, well, I've done all these things, I accepted it, and you just kind of have to forgive yourself, and just kind of get to that point of thinking, right, what are the lessons that come from this? Because I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, okay, this breakup maybe wasn't isn't like this breakup sucks, obviously, but there's lessons to all these things. Everything has a lesson, whether it's good or bad, and it's going to always help you just kind of better yourself to the next relationship or the next thing that you want to do. So I think for many people, it's easy to just blame yourself and think like, oh, I if I could have done this, if I could have done that, things were different. It's like maybe yes, maybe not. I think things are just kind of meant to be. Things happen for a reason. If it wasn't meant to be, maybe it'll be meant to be later on when you guys have more experience. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll get to the point where you feel so great about yourself and you've forgiven yourself for all these things that if he ever does try to come back, you'll feel like, oh, well, no, because it'll feel like you're settling, you know?
Right. That's what I try to tell myself is like, well, if it's meant to be, no matter what happens, we will end up together if it's meant to be. And you can
Right.
never you can't ever know that because anything could really happen in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so it's kind of like, well, whatever, no matter whatever I do right now, all I can do is just better myself. So if I end up back with him, I will be a better person and we will be able to work out much smoother. And if I don't end up back with him, then I'll end up in eventually in the happiest relationship of my life and I won't even care. Like, well, I won't even be like, oh, well, I'm glad that didn't work out because I wouldn't have met this person.
Yeah,
Like that kind of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, the end goal is going, like the ending is going to be good. It's going to work out. It's just hard to see that right now when you're so down about it.
Yeah, of course, of course. That's what I always like to say too. I always like to say you're in a win-win situation no matter what. As opposed to somebody who like as opposed to the dumper. Like the dumper, in my opinion, it's like they can either be like, hooray, this is the best thing I've done. I'm glad I broke up with that person and now I'm gonna be super happy. Or they can be like, well, what did I do? Why did I break up with them? Now I'm miserable. They were the one, all these things. Whereas like in our case, I think it's a win-win because it's like maybe the breakup is a blessing in disguise because then you can find somebody who's even better, who's going to make you even more happy, and you're going to be happy with yourself, and it all comes from yourself. You know, you do that self-healing thing and all these things. Or if you guys do get back together, then it's a win because then it's like hopefully if you guys get back together, there will be some growth from the two people. There will be a lot of healing from both sides, and then you guys can have an even better relationship. I think the issue, and I'll ask you this after this, but I think the issue is for a lot of people that I've seen post on the subreddit is that they're thinking, I want my ex back like right now. Like if they were to like it doesn't like I've you could they could say, oh, they treated me horrible, but if they come back, you know, I'll take them back. And I think that mentality is just like it's more toxic to yourself because it's like it comes from maybe the thing of like you just don't want to be alone. You just want to be with somebody, and you're so you're so used to that person that you got comfortable. And um, if you just take them back right away, you're just kind of opening up that old relationship. Where I think if people were to get back together, the old relationship has to be gone and you have to start a new one. Yes, you already know that person. Yes, you already know, you know, all these little things, their favorite color, their favorite food, but you have to start a new relationship and you both have to change from it because if there's no change, it'll just be the same way as it was and then it'll just be worse. So I think the question that I wanted to ask you is if he were to say like tomorrow, hey, I've been thinking about it, I want to try again, you know, all these things, what would you say, or what would you think?
Well, you're gonna be disappointed, but I would
No,
go
no,
right
no, it's
back.
fine. Yeah, and
Yeah.
okay, why would you though? Because I want to be open to that perspective of yours.
Well, a lot of people have been like, "Oh, do you miss the person or do you just miss the relationship?" And it's like,
Right,
no, I definitely miss him. I really miss being with him. I really miss all of our time together.
right.
So I definitely know things would be different if he didn't like if he was still like, well, I don't want to talk about it, I just want to pretend like nothing happened, then I would be like, well, no, we need to talk about it. I feel like I owe him an apology, and I feel like he owes me an apology. And I also said to my friends, I was like, well, if he does come back, it's going to be like the 30-day free trial. If a month goes down and he hasn't, I've changed a lot. I mean, I think so. I've been working on a lot of stuff, and I feel like I'm a lot different now already, even in this short amount of
Right.
time. But if he's not showing any effort to change the things that he wasn't good at, or nothing seems to be changing, then I'm going to say, hey, this isn't going to work out.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like, I'll give him another chance, but it's, if he hasn't put in all the hard work and effort that I have, and he's not showing any effort to change or to make sure our relationship survives the second time around, then it's not going to be worth it to waste my time and go through the feelings I went through with this breakup all over again.
Right. Yeah. And then that's what I mean as well. I think you have to be done with the first relationship, and then you have to kind of change a lot. Well, not change a lot, but just I guess change different perspective in the things that caused the relationship to happen. But do you think that in that span of a few months, it's possible to change that much to be able to have a brand new committed relationship?
I think it probably depends. I would say that I've probably made progress. But I don't know if I would be ready for it again, especially with him, because unless he comes back and all of a sudden he can communicate really well,
Right.
and it's like, oh, well, I've got my emotions under control a lot better now that I'm on medication and I've been going to therapy. I
Right.
think we can do this. But I would always be nervous that any given moment, any argument, he would just call it quits again. He would just leave again.
Right.
So that's the thing, is like, yes and no. I feel like I've made a decent amount of progress, but I want to be with him, but I know that's probably not the best to be with him now.
Yeah.
Like, I really, really want to, but it's probably going to end up being worse
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we would get back together now versus maybe in a few more months,
Right.
because
Yeah.
there's so much to work through and so much hurt that both of us caused the other, that there needs to be some sort of healing, and like, I don't know, like a discussion being like, I'm sorry, and here's what we want to do better, like that kind of thing. And I don't think unless he's also changed, I don't think he's willing to do that. Like, he was never willing to discuss what had happened or what was happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big thing.
I get what you mean. And I think that shows a lot of growth for you, because you recognize that yeah, it probably wouldn't work as much as I would love it to work. It probably wouldn't. I think it shows a lot of growth. I think for a lot of people, they don't care. They just want that person back desperately. And then it's like, at what cost? Because you have to look at um all these things. um I think personally for me, I would feel some sort of resentment, like, just like looking at her and looking at, if I were to get back together with an ex, I would just be looking at her eating cereal like, you broke up with me. Like, just being like upset, and just it would like probably eat me up. And then I would know, yeah, I'm not over this, because I feel some
Right.
sort of resentment. I feel some sort of like, okay, if we argue, are you going to say the same thing?
Right.
And then you then feel like you're walking on eggshells. You can't say certain things, or you don't want to fight. You don't want to do this because you're afraid of this and that. And I think it's great. I think it's great that you recognize that. I think it shows a lot of maturity on your side. And maybe in the future, if he decides to change, right, you guys talk it out and all these things, it'll be good. But I think obviously the beginning, the first step is just that self healing, that self growth, and just kind of recognizing a lot of things. I'm always all for looking internally, looking at things that you could have um that you could improve on yourself, and then just kind of moving on, learning how to be single again. I think that was like one of the toughest things. I was so used to a relationship that I forgot what I was doing when I was single. I was just like, now what? Now what do I do? I kind of forgot how to how these things work. And I think that's like the biggest thing. You have to learn to love being single and love being alone, because then it's like you're just like, better to be alone, right, than in bad company. It's what I always think, because
Hmm.
I think a lot of people just tend to just like, I just need somebody. And I think what you said is true. I think a lot of people also think, um I don't miss the person, I just miss the relationship. Like, not everybody obviously, but I think um many people just feel like, I need somebody because I'm just so desperate for affection. I just need it. And a lot of self growth and self healing needs to happen then, like, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely the most difficult thing I've ever gone through. So I guess I'm pretty privileged to say that this is the worst thing I've ever gone through so far in my life.
Yeah.
Um,
It's tough. It's tough. Like, breakups are not a joke. Like, this is like, I've been in many relationships, but this is my longest relationship. And it, like, I've never had a breakup. Like, I never really cared back in the day. Like, I never really was like, oh, you want to break up with me, or I'll break up with you, whatever. Like, I don't, I just, I didn't care. And then this is the first one where I felt it. Like, I felt that pain, that like thing of like, it's a weird numbing, like sometimes
mhm.
physical pain, where you just feel like,
Yes.
now what do I do with my life now? Like, that's exactly what I said the next day. I was just like, what do I do with my life now? Because everything revolved around the ex. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this for that, I'm gonna move in, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do all these things. And then when it's all over, you think like, oh, now what do I do? And then you just
Right.
have to learn. You basically have to learn how to walk again. You're slowly going into this thing, and it sucks. I know it sucks. Every day it's a struggle, but you just take it every day. You slowly start to get some traction in there. Start, hyping yourself up, telling yourself all these things. Like, for me, was going back to the gym. Nothing like a heartbreak to get you in shape. That's for sure. Like,
Yeah.
you pick up new hobbies. You learn about yourself. That's what the breakup should be about. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, you're gonna be, you're gonna feel lonely. You may feel depressed. You may feel like you don't want to eat. All these things, but I think the breakup is about learning yourself again, learning how to love yourself again, learning how to deal with yourself, because at the end of the day, you only have yourself. Like, you're in
Right.
charge of your own happiness. Nobody can, as much as you have somebody who cares about you, ultimately they're not in charge to make you happy. You have to do it yourself. And I think the breakup should be a great motivation to do that. And that's like the thing I try to tell people: just don't give up. You take it day by day. It's gonna suck. Try to find a support system here. That's what I'm trying
Right.
to give, a support system out to people that just want to vent, or say what they need to say. I'm
Hmm.
happy. Like, I have people on Reddit messaging me that I'm helping them. Met
Yeah.
met amazing people, awesome people, um, and yeah, just kind of have that outlet of like, it sucks, but I'm going through it. I'm gonna just try to get through it. And I think ultimately what I want, and is what I've noticed, and I completely get it. I think a lot of people turn toxic and bitter from it. I think a lot of people then villainize their exes, whether they're right or they're wrong, or like they just feel like, oh, what's the point anymore? What's the point in doing this? What's the point in love? What's the point in all these things? And I think that just like that, those feelings, um I wish didn't happen, but they do. You get to this point where you just feel so much anger and resentment towards the breakup that you feel like what's the point in love and all these things. And it's like it doesn't have to be like that. It's not always going to be amazing, but it's not always going to be this doom and gloom situation either.
Right.
Like you will get through it. You will get through that point of like where you feel so angry at the world for doing this, that it's not all bad. You have to go through sad stuff to know what happiness is. You have to go through these things. You have to push through it, because there is something good at the other side of it. Like a good positive mindset will gravitate positive things. And you should always strive to every day just try to be positive, try to do things for yourself. And I think, yeah, if you just keep doing that, good things will come to you.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm trying to work towards.
Yeah, for sure. I think if, as long as you just like work on it, right? Like the it's all a big journey. We're all on a big path. Like you just got to take the steps, and then just try not to give up. It doesn't mean that you're one day you're gonna feel really bad or gonna feel like a setback. Like it's fine, just as long as you keep going, and just like never give up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I wanted to ask you quickly about
Hmm.
COVID, because I think COVID is a big, big, big reason why for a lot of breakups. And I think it was because I was in a long distance. So COVID made it really, really hard to see my ex. And I think that was a big factor, like maybe 50% of the factor as to why the breakup happened. Have you had um any of those negative effects of COVID? Do you think it kind of did something to the relationship or no?
I would say not really, because we were used to having most of our communication being like over FaceTime, because of we went to the same school. So
Okay.
we did see each other every day. And then COVID took that away. But it was
Right.
kind of like, well, we did this over the summer. We talked to each other on the phone and then saw each other once or twice a week. So we kept doing that. Now I know you weren't supposed to. You weren't supposed to keep
Right.
going to people's houses. So we did take, I think, a few weeks off, but then it was like, well, I have a job at a nursing home, so
Mm,
I'm tested twice a week. So I was like, okay, well, if I get COVID from him, the only person I'm seeing, I'm going to know right away. And if I know
right.
that I have COVID, then I'm not going to go over to him. So it was kind of like well, we're not going anywhere. I would just go to his house. So we did still see each other. We did still talk a lot. And I feel like COVID affected our lives, but not to the point where it was a factor of the breakup, but
Okay.
it certainly was a factor of just like being stressed out and being,
Yeah.
discouraged. So,
Yeah, I think that's true. I think COVID was definitely it like definitely a big, big, big factor in a lot of people's stress, which
right.
obviously like it's I mean it's still ongoing, it's still a stressful situation. And I think that's where we saw a lot of people breaking up, or a lot of people being realizing a lot of things that maybe like, oh yeah, maybe we weren't meant for each other. And it's definitely something to always try to keep in check, because yeah, it does come from like if you're feeling these sort of things of like too much stress due to everything that's going on, um having that open communication to be able to talk about it, it's extremely important. Just if anybody's out there that has that going on right now, communication is definitely the key. If you're thinking about breaking up with somebody because of stress, all these things, definitely communicate it first.
Yeah.
Blindsiding is a tough thing. I guess I get it. Looking at it now, I guess I get it. People just check out before the relationship is over, but please have that courtesy of communicating your feelings, Uh,
Yes.
just saying how you feel. If you want to end it, just say, "Hey, I'm feeling like this, feeling like that." Talk it out, and hopefully, it works out for the best of um both of you guys. Sometimes it's meant to be, sometimes it's not. But I just have two final questions for you. I'm gonna ask them back
All
to
right.
back, and then we'll be done here. Uh, what is what are the good things that you took away from this relationship that you think you'll use in the future? And what are the bad things that you took away from this relationship that you think uh, should be fixed for the future for yourself?
Yeah, I would probably say that one of the biggest things is that he definitely really showed me that I was, now this sounds like so dramatic because I'm so young, but I was
Right,
worthy of being loved. Like there's somebody out there who is going to treat me well and is going to care for me and is going to love me.
right,
Um, and that I realized I had a lot of good things in that relationship, that I shouldn't settle for less. There was a lot of respect. There was a lot of like kindness, and he made the time for me and he showed his love in ways that, you know, I didn't always quite pick up on because our love languages were different, but there was a lot of things
mhm,
where it was like, oh, well, he made time for me. He was very trustworthy and loyal. And it was like, okay, I can't settle for less. Like there's a
right,
lot of people who in my life that were like, wow, he does that. I'm like, yeah, is that not the bare minimum? And stuff
right,
like that. And I know definitely a lot of things is also like, yeah, don't settle for less. So don't settle for somebody who can't communicate their feelings. Now I understand communication is hard and it's something that you need to learn, but I know I definitely need to find somebody in the future that is a lot more able to communicate better and is able to be patient and won't just walk away. Like I understand needing
right,
to walk away, but I don't understand doing it without warning. Like shutting your phone off without warning. Like,
right,
hello?
right. Yeah,
Or
I get you.
like somebody who's not going to ignore me. Now he did not do that often. Like I think he's only done it twice where he would ignore
Right,
me for a day or something. But there was also a lot of things that I learned myself that it was like I need to not freak out so much. I need to not take things so personally. Take some of the little stuff he says in a different way than he meant. And it's
right,
stuff like that. Like of course we had our really good sides and our really bad sides. So for some people they may be like, you're crazy that you're saying that he was such a great person and yet he ignored you. It's like, well, we all do things we're not proud of and we all make big mistakes. So it's like I loved him so much, yet I still did not, I said and did things during our arguments that are embarrassing. I'm not proud of it. It's so immature. And
right,
it's, I look back and I'm like, that's so immature. So it's like you can love somebody truly and yet still make mistakes that hurt the other person, coming from a lack of experience, a lack of maturity, a lack of emotional intelligence, all that kind of stuff. We both made, it was both kind of like we made mistakes, and I'm learning from them, and I'm sure, I'm hoping that he eventually sees his, because I think a lot of it was like he also didn't want to admit he was wrong or admit he made mistakes. So I'm
right,
hoping eventually he also grows from this as well. So definitely there was a lot of good things to relationship. There was also, bad things. And there is that sometimes. And then some people like, well, it wasn't truly love if, and it's like, well, I don't think you can say that because like I said, I said and did things that I was like, that's so immature. Like I wouldn't do that in my right mind. And it's like, and I regret it so much. And I wish I hadn't done that. But throughout the whole of the relationship, he treated me really well. And I have a lot of regrets. And I feel like I didn't treat him as well as I should have. as well as he treated me. That kind of thing. That's where the biggest thing of being like, I'm having a hard time forgiving myself, where it's
Right.
like, I feel like he treated me really well and I didn't treat him as well. But then I remember that he treated me as best as he could and I treated him as best as I could, as with what I had. And it also comes into play with afterwards figuring out I had a lot of undiagnosed mental health issues. So
Right.
it's also a big thing of like, well, now I'm getting better and now I understand more. I wish I would have done this sooner. I wish I would have known sooner, because then I could have. And I can't lean on mental health by just being like, oh, well, I have a mood disorder, so that's why I did that. No, it's not necessarily an excuse. You still have to take accountability for it.
Right.
And I know I'm making it sound like we were horrible, but I think I'm really emphasizing on the bad things by accident, because it's so easy to remember a lot of the bad things
Yeah,
because
of course.
you're sitting in that place of like, I feel so horrible for every single thing I did, even though that thing may have been a year and a half ago. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
it's like we both have apologized for things, and so there was no resentment. It's not like years of resentment build up and that's what happened. So I think definitely good things was that he showed me how I should be treated and how that I'm definitely worthy of being able to be loved. And he also showed me that there are things that I need to look for in a guy, that some things that he did that I need to avoid with a guy in the
Right.
future, and also things that I did that I need to fix so that I'm able to have a healthier and more mature relationship in the future.
Yeah. I think perfectly said. I think the mental health aspect of it, I think it's something that I would love to touch up on at another episode. So if you
Yeah.
would love to be back, I would love to have you back, because I think
Yeah, of course.
just to talk about that mental health aspect and having a relationship at the same time is also, it's really important, because I think a lot of people go through it. Um, so definitely want to dedicate some time, an episode for it. But yeah, I think everything you said is spot on. I think you just you get to the point where you forgive yourself for what happened. It's easier said than done, obviously, because you feel this sort of guilt, maybe a bit of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I did this, I said that, I shouldn't have done that. But that's where the growth comes from. That's where the lessons come from. That's where the healing comes from. You know,
Right.
you learn all these things. You say, okay, well, for the future, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that. And for me personally, I think it kind of washes away any of the things that you may have made a mistake on, because you're no longer making those mistakes if you fix them. If you
Right.
recognize them, if you recognize that they were wrong and you start to fix them, they are no longer things that hinder you.
Right.
Those mistakes are not going to be a thing that are going to stop you from bettering yourself. So, you know, if you recognize that, you keep going. I think it's a perfect way to look at it. And I, of course, I wish you the best with everything that's going on
Thank you.
in the situation, and I hope everything works out.
Yes, thank you. And same to you, of course.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. I thank you so much for
Yeah, of
coming
course.
on, just talking about, you know, I know it's not easy talking about your what your situation, your perspective, but I hope this helps anybody
Yes.
out there that's going through it. I'm going to try to get this out there, and if anybody else wants to come on, my DMs are open. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye bye.